Hello and welcome back. I'm Dan, the Neuro Man May, and this is the Neurodivergence podcast, a space where we explore neurodivergence, identity, and the world we're expected to fit into. Nice to have you with me again, folks. Now, before I get into the main bulk of the podcast, there's just something that I want to acknowledge with you all. Up until now, I've been signing off each podcast with remember, neurodivergence is your superpower. I'm here today to tell you that that's going to change because this has come about in light of a reel which I came across the other day of Pete Warmby, who, as you know, is a well known autistic and ADHD advocate and public speaker. And he went into quite deep detail about the idea of what we have being a superpower. And I'm going to be honest with you all, because I think I'd be doing you a disservice if I wasn't. For some neurodivergent people, like myself, having autism and ADHD is not a superpower. And it hasn't been to me, folks. It hasn't. It's caused a lot of problems, a lot of heartache. You know, not just with myself, but with my family and my friends, past relationships, and even current ones. Having both autism and ADHD can be very, very painful. It not only affects you neurologically, it affects you mentally, and it affects, certainly from my experience, the ability to sustain employment, the ability to progress in employment, as well as the ability to form successful relationships with our peers, particularly when it comes to team building, because there's that social barrier, isn't there, folks? That barrier where we just can't quite get over that wall and join in with the group and fit in. So from today, I shall be signing off with something different, and you'll see what that will be at the end of this podcast. So, in today's podcast, we shall be looking at redesigning systems. Okay? Now, let me explain what I mean by this. I don't mean redesigning a computer system. Okay? I don't mean redesigning a portrait or a canvas. I mean designing a system in which neurodivergent people were not meant to fit into, albeit a system that they should fit into. Okay? Because this is like designing a shoe that has the wrong size. And as we know, one size does not always fit all. And this is something that I found very frustrating with employers, that if it works for one person, it will work for you, which is not always the case. And I'm sure there are other neurodivergent people out there who have had similar experiences to this. Okay? Because the issue that we have is that a system is designed for one type of thinker. Okay? For one thinker who just instinctively knows what to do, who just can do it. Like playing the piano, you can just play. But what happens when you can't play? You give up. or the people trying to teach you give up on you. Now, to my knowledge, the only people who have never given up on me is my mother, my stepfather, my grandparents, my fiancée Claire, and my LSA Christine Drayton. However, once you enter the world of employment, employers do not know you as well as they do, as well as your family do, as well as your siblings, friends, etc. They only see what's on the surface. And this is something that I had great difficulty with, because I'm not saying that it was always the employer's fault. Some of it was down to me, but that was also because I didn't have a diagnosis of anything. So, how can I expect reasonable adjustments when I don't know what it is I need adjustments for, and therefore I can't explain it to the employer? And so it gets to the point where the employer literally does not know what to do with us, because we are judged for being neurodivergent. Let's not hide this fact. We are. And at the very beginning of my working life, my mother used to say to me, "You know what, Daniel, I don't think you should tell people about your autism," because I hadn't had my ADHD diagnosis at this stage. "I don't think you should tell them. But there's a problem there, because if you don't tell an employer that you have a disability, albeit an invisible one, it opens the door to a whole plethora of problems, such as misinterpretation, miscommunication, generally being misunderstood. Your intentions are misunderstood. The way you conduct yourself is misunderstood. What's appropriate to you is not appropriate to them. What's funny to you is not funny to them. And this harkens back to something earlier that I said, that no one ever tells you that the rules have changed. You're just expected to know. But that isn't how it works for a neurodivergent person, because we build our own routine, we get used to that routine, and then suddenly we're told that that routine is going to change, and we can't deal with it, because we have this "if it's not broken, why fix it" attitude, you know? And this is where the system falls down. The system is broken, because it's not designed for neurodivergent people. It's designed for neurotypical people. And this is why there's a vast increase of disabled unemployment, why there's a increase in male suicide and female, why there's so many people on benefits, because they think that they're better off. Because, okay, I'm not saying all these people deserve to be on benefits, but the ones who do are the ones who simply can't integrate into society, who aren't just not accepted by employers, because they don't understand us, they don't like us. That sounds like a harsh statement, but it's true. They do not like us. And we can complain about this all we want, but eventually this is where the system has to change. And I found this particular challenge in my last job that I was terminated from in November last year, because to me, that was a prime example of being expected to function in a system that wasn't suited to me. I can remember going to the head's office at the beginning of September. It was about a week or two into me starting the role. And they were aware of my neurodivergence because the health and safety officer was in the room. And I told them about my neurodivergence. I'd also given them my previous occupational health form from my previous job, just so that they were kept in the loop. So I was doing them a favour. I was giving them all the information that they needed to help support me. And the first thing the health and safety officer said to me was, "Do you really need all this right now?" Now, to me, that felt like a cop out. It felt like immediately they'd already formed an opinion of me in their head. They'd gone, "This guy's going to be hard work. This guy's going to prove a challenge. See how he gets on in the next few weeks. And then if he's not performing to standard, then we'll just terminate him." And it's hard for us to not have that mindset, folks, you know, particularly if you're neurodivergent, because you're constantly on the edge. You know, getting through a single day is more difficult than a neurotypical person that can get through a single week. Because rarely you get a neurotypical person say, "Oh, what a morning I've had. Oh, what a day I've had." It's always what a week I've had. How's your week been? Oh, terrible. Neurodivergent person. How's your week been? Well, I'll start with my day first. It's only Monday. Because we're exhausted, because again, we're having to mask. We're having to mold our own image of what's acceptable to neurotypical people. And that isn't a true image of our authentic selves. But we feel we have to because we feel it's the only way we can integrate to the system. And I do feel this is why I was terminated, because I didn't fit their way of thinking, because essentially I challenged it. At the time, I didn't realize that I was challenging it. I saw that something wasn't right and I acted upon it rather than let it build up and build up and build up and build up. I said what I felt. And this is where things become a very grey area with employment and neurodivergent people, because the rules are never clear. They are unwritten. And I've mentioned this before about the unwritten rules in the workplace. Unless someone tells you, how are you going to know? How are you going to interpret what it is that people want from you, particularly neurotypical people? We are not a threat, folks. We are the next stage of human evolution. That sounded very Marvel Comics there, but it's true. You know, we are the next stage. Humans, apes, primates, we keep on evolving, you know, and I'm sure, I'm not a historian, but I'm sure that in 1,000 years' time, maybe less than that, we will look, act, and sound completely different to what we are now. We might have one big toe instead of 5 digits, one finger, no hands. We could be completely different. Our brain will be completely wired differently. And there was a stage, and this is going to be quite dark now, and I don't mean to be, but I feel I would be doing you a disservice if I wasn't truthful with you all. There was a time when I wanted to be rid of my neurodivergence. I didn't want it anymore. Now, I'm not looking for sympathy, okay? I'm just telling you how it is, like every good neurodivergent person. There was a time when I considered having TCMS. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is essentially a posh term for electroshock therapy. Because this was a treatment that was designed to help alleviate the symptoms of autism and ADHD, as well as anxiety and depression, without the need for medication. And it was Chris Packham, who you'll all know as the presenter of Spring Watch, who's a brilliant and very well known advocate for autism, ADHD, dyslexia. Great man. He's become one of my inspirations. Uh, he did a program about our autistic minds, which I think is still available on iPlayer. And he said that I just don't like the idea of someone messing around with my brain. Could this treatment make a person worse instead of better? Could it make them incoherent, non thinking? This treatment could take away an important piece of them and not make them the same person. So ultimately, I decided against it. But again, this was before I got my ADHD diagnosis. I thought it was just the autism that was the main problem. But what we need to learn is that it's only a problem to a neurotypical person. To a neurodivergent person, this is who we are. This is what we do, and we embrace it. But is it a superpower? No. It's a different way of thinking, but it's not a superpower, folks. Okay? So I think that's important to remember because we're all unique. We're all different in our abilities because there's so many levels of the spectrum when it comes to ADHD and autism. And all we can do is own it. Just own it. Do what we can do to survive, folks. That's the most important thing. And if anything, the last experience I had with employers taught me that, I need to design a system that's right for me, not work in a system that's right for neurotypical people. I need to really get inside my own head and think very, very carefully about my next move. Essentially, rolling the dice and seeing what my odds are so that I eventually and hopefully can sustain long term employment and be part of a system that accepts me and a system that works for me, has clear rules and expectations that are explicit, not ambiguous. Okay? So, I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. And I want you to go away today and remember that maybe the problem was never you in the first place. Maybe it is just a system. A system that we can hopefully change. Thank you for listening, folks. I'm Dan, the Neuro Man May. And next week we shall be talking about the power of different minds.